Hello everyone, it's me the Boss Hog, back with another video for the week ending the 21st of July. Honestly, it's been a kind of interesting week. Do you know what, I thought I'd go with a slightly silly thumbnail this week. I really like Futurama, and for anyone who hasn't seen it, this guy whenever he comes in is like, good news everyone! And I guess in theory, UK inflation being just 7.9% was seen as good news. And certainly middle of the week, the UK stock market had a really great day. And then, of course, people stepped back a little bit and reality stepped in. But certainly some of my stocks performed really well this week off the back of these results, and it's worth addressing, I suppose. More generally, though, I continue to believe that the US stock market is a little bit pricey at the moment and the UK stock market is a little bit cheap. But in fairness, there's lots of reasons why the UK stocks are cheap, and we're going to cover some of them now. Anyway, let's do it. Alright, so we're going to start in our normal place, and no dividends or deposits this week. I did do a bit of selling, and half of it was even planned. I'll start with the bit that wasn't. Basically, I meant to buy the X-Trackers MSCI World Healthcare. This is what I would describe as my big tech ETF. And I accidentally clicked the sell button instead of the buy button, so that was a little bit of a whoopsie for me. What instead I meant to do this week was trim my S&P 600 position. I'm up about 7% on the stock. I am down about 5% on FX at the moment, but by moving from USD to USD, I don't really see that difference, basically. And this was really just a little bit of rebalancing. I thought that when you look at my buys here, so first of all, I put half of it into my global real estate. I feel like real estate's a little bit beaten up at the moment. I know why, because, with high interest rates and a lot of borrowing needs to be refinanced, and the whole business model of REITs is quite debt heavy, so higher interest rates means more debt repayments, etc. But I just think that that's a little bit beaten up, and I do feel like a lot of the interest rate rises have now mostly worked their way through the system, so it should be stabilizing and hopefully improving in the short term. I did actually feel like I timed this quite well, and I'm again in a very similar situation here where I'm about 7% green, but then only more or less flat actually, because the FX is so bad for me at the moment. So you can see here this is like a 1-for-1, so nice and straightforward there. My other 10 shares that I sold in S&P 600 eventually went into my big healthcare. This was maybe quite good timing because J&J had a bit of a run up toward the end. But again, it was kind of similar. It just looked like there might be some value in that sector at the moment, and therefore I'm trying to grow my slice here anyway, so I decided to buy into there. Here I'm down about 1%, but again, up on the stock price and down on the FX as well, so quite happy with these movements. I felt like I timed both of them quite well, and I was broadly happy with the direction of travel. I did have 100 shares in the S&P 600, so basically selling 20 of them meant a reasonable reduction in my position, but that was my rationale for this week, shall we say. In terms of financials, it was a pretty decent week. Week on week, I was up the better part of 2,000. You can see here no dividends. There was a very minor change to my realized P&L, which was basically selling the S&P, as I mentioned. And because it was only up, sort of 1%, not even that, it didn't really contribute much to my realized position. But again, I'm kind of quite happy because by moving from USD to USD, I don't really see the impact of that. So broadly speaking, up the better part of under 2,000 last week. And actually, a lot of it was in my UK stocks rather than my US ones, as we'll get to in just a second. Because I'm recording this on a Sunday, there is a little bit of movement just because my portfolio tracker is real time, so I'm already plus £9 for the week, so that's nice. And pretty tight reconciliation here between Trading 212, my brokerage, and my Google Docs document. I'll continue to track the S&P as closely as I can, considering, again, I'm getting pounded on the FX impact at the moment, so still continue to be pretty happy with that graph. This graph is also kind of interesting, but we're nearing all-time highs, but I haven't quite got there yet, again, mainly because of my UK position. But it did really show a significant spike midway through the week before falling back again, unfortunately, but still moving in a positive direction, all things considered. You can see here that actually my top 3 positions didn't really have a great week. Amcor, there's nothing specific other than the fact that ASML's results, which are just down here, were seen as somehow bad, and so the share price dropped a lot. I do wonder at the moment if, because some of these stocks, including ASML in fairness, trade at such a high multiple, unless they really smash the numbers, it's difficult for them to not fall back. Saying that though, ASML kind of did. Paul Briscoe was actually suggesting it might be because of increases in sales to China and a decrease to Taiwan. Maybe there's sort of some geopolitical concerns there. I'm not really sure. Maybe that has some merit because honestly, everything else was really impressive. Comparisons, earnings upgrades, etc. Didn't really understand it, but yeah, there was a little bit of a lack of love across much of the sector last week, so I think it was related to that. The big winner for me this week was actually Redrow. I mean, this is a FTSE 250 company, so it's not huge, but it's not tiny either. It's not a penny stock, and they were up 15% in the week. And again, this is just sort of a knock-on of the inflation numbers being less than expected. So now the assumption is the Bank of England won't have to be quite as extreme in moving up the base rate, which should mean that mortgages become less expensive than was feared, which should mean that house prices and housing transactions more generally won't be as impacted as feared. And now, in fairness, I've been saying this for months, that I think that you can pretty much pick any house builder and you'll find a bargain at the moment, just because the sector is so beaten up that honestly, like, any positive news is just going to have a huge impact on the shares, and it's difficult to find too much more of a gloomy position. So after this move, I'm down about 4%, but up once you include some realized positions, some dividends that I've already had. And yeah, remain committed to having a UK house builder at the moment. I'd probably be buying this, honestly, if especially before this run up, just because I think there is money to be made there. Outside of that, there wasn't a huge amount of movement this week. MPW, I guess, is worth addressing. That I mentioned this about a couple of months ago now, but I haven't seen any material update on either the legal case where they're defending themselves against the short seller, or any deterioration in either Prospect specifically or Steward more generally. They're two kind of problem tenants at the moment. So MPW seems to be moving, broadly speaking, in the right direction. And similarly with banks here as well, like, this is something where I am now green on the stock price and again red on the FX. But I'm pretty happy with here. I didn't quite catch it perfectly. Maybe I could have been a bit more brave when it was falling, when the US regional banks were having their issues. But this has recovered reasonably well, and actually I did turn green during the week, but it sort of fell back again just a little bit. So this is above my buy price, but again, FX is doing FX things at the moment. And yeah, this is quite a new position for me, so I've basically gained from most of this run up over the last sort of month and quarter, so that feels pretty good from that perspective as well. Anyway, honestly, that's mostly all I have, certainly in that breakdown. I did just want to go down here and show an update here. And I shared this last week, but there's been one little update that I did, which was because it was annoying me, basically, that this graph didn't match with the, benchmark at the top. And that's because the benchmark at the top was including December 2020. Whereas this wasn't. So there's technically a little asterisk here against 2021 now, which also includes December 2020, which is basically when everything else in my document starts. So I just decided to update that just to make it consistent, and all those other good things as well. So now when we eventually do get to the end of this year, this calendar year, we'll have sort of technically 37 months, but then we'll have a nice clean data set to compare against. Yeah. Not much outside of that. Let's have a look and see how all of our non-financial stuff is performing at the moment. Alright, so in terms of this dashboard, I'll start in terms of the wealth. Did a couple of things this week. So first of all, the number here rose £100. Every month we basically pay into Aurelia's junior ISA £100. So £1,200 per year. Now, in fairness, that is way below the 9,000, and even though we definitely struggled to hit 9,000, we could definitely do more than 1,200 a month. The thing is, though, like, me and my wife just don't want to be frank. Like, our daughter's going to get sort of around 40,000 when she's 18, and we just think that's enough, basically. Like, we don't want to kind of spoil our daughter. We think it's important that she has some adversity and challenges, and I think £100, like, if I was to be 18 again and get 40 grand, I'd be absolutely delighted. We are working on some options around, like, how sensible she is with that, and maybe we'll top it up if we feel like we're going to have a very sensible daughter. But right now it's too early to tell. I also updated my wife's current work pension with Legal & General. Just basically made it a lot more risky. It was on sort of a very blended sort of 60-40 with bonds and everything else. It's hardly YOLO, It's kind of 70% sort of developed world's ETFs, but all stocks now, and then there's sort of 15% in basically high risk and 15% in small caps, which I would class as reasonably high risk as well. They're global small caps, so there's that as well. So we'll see how that shapes up. But yeah, basically, if I did a blended average, like 7 was the riskiest and 1 was the least risky, and it's at like 5.3. So again, it's a little more risky, but it's hardly insane. In terms of outstanding at work, I mean, really good news this week was that my new system went live on Friday. I mean, I was super busy doing various planning for it, which is why I guess some of my other stuff toward the bottom of the list didn't do so well. But I'm absolutely delighted by this. It's been delayed quite a few times, but now it is live. It's going live in 3. Well, phase 1 is technically going live over a couple of phases, so I guess it's like 1A, B, C, and but effectively, one of our 3 sales channels is now going live, and so far things are ticking through the system. The work that I do in sort of billing and payments means that there's a bit of a lag in terms of making sure that this stuff works. But you know, we've tested this within an inch of its life, so hopefully as stuff comes through, it'll go through nice and easily. But I must admit, I'm slightly nervous, but we will see. Next up, we've got phase 2, and then next year we'll have phase 3 as well, where we'll basically be doing additional stuff into the system. So it's not like, I mean, this for me is like a kind of 1 year project from start to finish. So it's exciting, and I'm really pleased that that's now live. Similarly as well, revenue assurance targets are going really great. We're basically making a very material contribution to my company's financial targets, which feels awesome. And you know, the people in that team are doing a really good job as well. I've actually got a meeting with our CEO on Wednesday just to update him on the numbers, so that should be good. But I'm really pleased with how it's looking so far. Then our propensity to contact reduction, which is basically a cost-saving initiative. So we're sort of in the process at the moment of, I guess, professionalising our slides and, you know, basically giving updates as to how certain projects are doing. Again, I'm slightly just watching what I'm saying because I don't want to sort of say anything that's too sensitive or controversial or, sorry, confidential. But yeah, effectively, we've reviewed the reasons why customers contact us, and now it's our job to sort of remove those. You know, so for example, if a customer needs to contact us to update their DD details, the direct debit details, what do we do to basically automate that process, right? I mean, some customers will always contact you by the phone, but ideally you want the customers to self-serve, especially because our customer demographic is very young, very modern. We're basically a London-focused business. So we have a very engaged demographic, basically, that would be happy to do this stuff if we just gave them the tools to do it. So there's some cool stuff going on there. I've more or less finished my team organisation now. I've got my final person starting on Monday, and then I'm just doing a couple of sort of salary changes and job promotions, effectively, title changes. I've done quite a few already as part of my shake-up since I've started. This should be my final few things. And I'm also in the very early stages of working on my budget for the next 2 years, just in terms of what the future will look like once the stuff like, you know, all the systems are live and we simplify our technology stack, etc. So that's cool as well. And then lastly here, the end-to-end data reporting. Again, still a work in progress. I had a chat on Tuesday with 2 of the people who were going to basically be leading this, and basically everyone's super excited about it. The main guy is kind of a bit of a veteran, so I'm kind of trusting him to do his stuff, and you know, he's basically got until the end of the year to do it together, and yeah, it should be awesome. So I'm very excited to see how that shakes out over the next sort of 6 months or so. In terms of attending gym, I did 2 sessions this week, which actually I was quite happy with, even though I did them at home because I was feeling a bit rough sort of Wednesday, Thursday. My daughter, basically all of us got sick, just kind of a mild cold. My daughter especially got quite ill. I got modestly ill. I did take a day off work. And my wife sort of got just a smidge ill, but just basically powered through, so think of that what you will. But I was still reasonably happy. In terms of my weight, I remain at 105. Honestly, I'm eating fairly well. I'm doing a lot of cooking from scratch. I mean, I made a pasta. I didn't make the pasta, sorry. I made the bolognese from scratch. I just cooked the pasta today. And during the week, I've been basically making a bunch of meals and salads and you know, sides and all the rest of it. So that's been pretty good. And also I've been snacking a lot less than I have, which I'm quite pleased with as well. And then in terms of taking care of myself, again, mostly good. I've been sort of, I got my skincare products delivered, so that's, I've started using them now, which is honestly the first time I've ever had sort of proper skincare. I feel like it has had some impact in the fact like my face feels smoother. You can't really see any difference yet, so I'm hoping over the next, like they tell you need to do it for like 4 to 6 weeks to see a more noticeable difference. So we'll see how that goes. But it does feel quite nice just to sort of splash myself in the morning, shall we say. My sleeping could definitely be a lot better. And yeah, as I mentioned, I got a bit ill. I also think like I've been procrastinating a little bit for no obvious reason. I think it's just like trying to get going on a few different topics. But again, I think it's just important that I call that out so that I can address it. Again, that's the purpose of this dashboard. In terms of family, we went swimming last weekend, which was awesome. We do floats and stuff, and basically just take our daughter swimming. I'm a very poor swimmer. My wife is kind of average, but in fairness, it's like a meter deep pool, so there's no danger there, and it's just about giving our little one some confidence. So that was good. I didn't do anything extra with sort of family, friends, or professional outside of work. In fairness, though, again, all of my focus was on work, and because I missed a day's worth of work as the system was going live, I was also extremely busy on a number of areas. So that was, I don't feel too bad about that stuff. Where I do feel a little bit bad is that I didn't do a midweek video. I did actually plan on doing one on Wednesday, and I'm hoping to do one next Wednesday, basically to talk about some stuff I got through from Nutmeg, which I think is worth talking about. It's about investments, and this is the company that basically managed my pensions. So yeah, I think I'm going to do that next Wednesday, but obviously again, I got ill, so I just wasn't in the mood to do it. Likewise as well, I sort of want to more structurally start studying some Polish. Wifey has been sort of pulling it out just to sort of test me and my daughter a little bit, and again, it's clear that we're a bit rusty. Similarly as well in terms of publish a story, but I've given myself quite a couple of months here to get myself together there, so that's fine. And then in terms of regular reading, I did take a book, and I'm nearly finished my third book for the year, and I've got a fourth book now as well. But actually, although I took it out several times, any sort of free time that I had, like including earlier today when I was out and about, I just basically enjoyed a bit of like switching off from technology and actually just kind of enjoying a drink and actually just thinking or not thinking. I'm not even sure really what it was. So I didn't actually do any reading, but again, I didn't feel too bad about this one because the whole point of this is really to broaden my mental faculties, I suppose, and actually just being able to give my brain a little bit of free thinking time felt good in its own right. So again, I'm hoping in the medium term here that I can maybe do a book review or two and sort of share some books. Like, I mean, of the 3 books I've read this year, I've actually enjoyed all. They've been quite different. So yeah, I think there's probably some value in sharing those, which is my sort of aspiration for this point where I feel really good about it. But that's everything so far. It's been a bit of a mixed week, to be honest with you. It's a bit work focused, and then the illness just kind of threw out a couple of things as well. And again, it's slow going in a few of these areas as well, which I hope to improve in the medium term. But we will see. Anyway, that's everything I've got for this week. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I've been the Boss Hog, and good luck with your investing and everything else. Bye for now. Alright, so I'm going to keep the same format here, which is basically just as a reminder for last week's notes and then a comparison for this week. So no additional contribution to wealth this week. It is what it is. It's the middle of the month. In terms of total wealth, however, there was quite a big jump here going from 391 to 398, and actually during the middle of the week this crested and was above 400 for the first time ever, so that was quite exciting. Did get pulled back toward the end of the week, but still pretty happy with it. The big rise was a combination of 2 things, basically. My salary went in on the 20th, which is when I get paid, so that's going to have a contribution for obvious reasons. And then also the stocks market also did generally very well, so we've already said my portfolio went up $2,000. My pensions also went up pretty decently as well, which again are very exposed to the stock market, so they tend to track each other very closely. So yeah, really solid week on week growth. In terms of my work stuff, new system, it's got a couple of split teething issues, but nothing worse than you'd expect, so I'm pretty happy about that and doing a couple of pieces of work off the back of it, so that's going great. I also have my monthly presentation basically to the CEO. A couple of things got discussed. So first of all, the revenue assurance targets, which again, I don't feel comfortable sharing an exact number, but we're about 5 months ahead of schedule at the moment and feeling very positive in the general direction, especially the kind of professionalism and robustness that we're starting to introduce into the area feels really great. Propensity to contact reduction, which is a key way that telcos can reduce their costs, is also going well. So my area is basically billing and payments and anything related to those areas. In my experience, basically billing and payments typically accounts for about 1/3 of the reasons why customers contact their telcos. The other 2/3 being split roughly equally between technical reasons, i.e. my broadband's down, and then kind of sales and commercial reasons as well being the other third. So that's pretty standard in most of the companies I've worked in, and it's similar to my current employer at the moment. So we are presenting our next 6 months on Monday. I reviewed my guys' slides and gave them some feedback, and quite nervous about this, but only kind of from a kind of nervous excitement rather than any major worry. I think again that we're moving very closely aligned to the rest of the business as well. So team organisation, I put complete here. I might change the wording here to like team management or something. Basically, I did a restructure of my team when I started, which I completed already. I did my final hire last Monday. She joined. I'm very happy with her first week so far. I've been hearing good things. I've got to catch up with her next Tuesday. So she's reporting into one of my reports. I'm not going to see her too often, but at the same time, I think it makes sense to. I mean, I do have a general introduction with everyone in my team just to see if there's anything and introduce myself, and etc. That more or less rounds off my recruitment for this year. I actually, at the moment at work, I'm working on on my budget, my staff budget for the next 2 years, which needs to be completed for November, and will be challenged lots of times and all those other good things. Next up, we've got an end-to-end data reporting overhaul. So this was also presented, and I kind of introduced the skeleton structure as well as kind of the work we've done so far. Boss was super liking the idea, which is basically to measure the efficiency between our contracted revenue through to cash collected. I've done that a couple of times in the past, and it's been very powerful in terms of how you can manage and your understanding of what's happening across the business. So he also liked that as well, and was sort of asking me what the challenges are, when he could have it by, etc. So I mean, the only bad thing about going public with these kind of plans is that you end up sort of creating that expectations. That can be positive, it can be negative, and ultimately it's for me to manage. So honestly, I continue to be really happy with my work objectives. I feel like I'm getting back into my best after sort of a couple of difficult years related to sort of both my parents passing away as well as having a daughter, which is also a significant drain on time. So I feel really good at my work at the moment. Fitness and well-being is less so. I only managed one session last week, which was annoying because at least I was ramping up positively. Anyone who watched this video last week, you'll probably remember that I said, I was quite sick with my daughter, but my wife managed to avoid it. This week, though, the opposite thing happened. My wife was actually even worse than I was from the week before. So she sort of had 3 or 4 days where she definitely wasn't at 100%, but also had to go into the office because her employer was going through a bit of a restructure as well. So she was just absolutely knackered, which meant I had more childcare and therefore didn't have enough time to do anything else. So I did manage to do one session, but it was honestly kind of pushing it a little bit to even call it a session. It was mainly just sort of stretching and making sure I did something, but still disappointed that I wasn't sort of upping the rhythm there. So similarly with reduced weight, no change. I am continuing to cook dinner from scratch, and literally this morning, or I guess it would be Saturday morning now, I cooked with my daughter, which is a nice sort of bonding activity, and made a risotto dish, so that was cool. And likewise, in terms of taking care of myself, I'm pretty happy with this week actually. I mean, I needed to sleep, so I got quite good sleep most of the time, mainly because I was just very tired and hardworking. So that was actually a pretty big improvement because the previous week I wasn't sleeping so well. So that's awesome. Mentioned about my wife already, so that's frustrating. Last weekend I actually took my daughter out. I think my wife wanted to do some cleaning in the house or something, and anyway we alternate days at the weekend, so it's fine. And we went to what I would class as quite a big child's playground. I mean, the tallest level is about 30 meters in the air, and I'm really not exaggerating. It's a really impressive climbing frame in the woods near where I live in East London. And my daughter's only 3.5, but she managed to go to the second highest level, so that was pretty awesome. And she also went on a really big swing without any kind of protection or anything. And to start with, I was really nervous, but by the end of it, she was about 12 12, 14 meters in the air. So she was loving it. Again, it's more like a rope swing, so it goes really far. It must be like a sort of 30-meter end to end, and then yeah, you're actually off the ground as well. So it's I was a bit nervous to start with. I think I mildly terrified my wife when I sort of explained to her the setup, but it was quite fun. And dads are meant to be there to push things a little bit. I've also been having regular contact with one of my 3 sisters. She's specifically my biggest little sister, so she's the closest in age to me. And she's been helping us sell some of our old baby stuff, so everything from sort of prams and slings through to toys. And it's interesting actually, anything that my daughter sort of willingly gave up, sort of puzzles or toys or etc., she's getting the money for. So we're basically just giving her some money and she can spend it on whatever she wants, which is inevitably more toys because that's what 3-year-olds want. And then so that's been sort of an interesting educational piece hopefully for her, and we get to sort of understand exactly what she wants and so on. Didn't make any huge strides with my friends and connections. Professional, I actually got approached for a job this week, and honestly in a different world I probably would have been quite tempted. It was a little bit more money than I'm on now, but with a massive bonus attached to it, although quite demanding expectations, I'm sure. But it was basically like a global collections manager for a hot desking private office type company. So I would have been a little bit tempted, to be honest with you, just because the salary and the kind of situation was there. But anyway, I declined, but I also thought these kind of jobs in what I do are quite niche, so it never hurts to have the contact. So I explained my situation to her, and we've agreed to have a introductory chat next Tuesday. Especially when you get to a certain stage in your career, having a relationship with headhunters is just hugely important. And I checked out her employer, and they have a lot of kind of the sort of head of to director to C-suite kind of recruitment where I'm hoping to go to next. So that would be good to build that relationship. I am looking to do more regular videos. Again, I keep saying I'm going to be doing one in the middle of the week. I've got 3 lined up at the moment, but basically just as notes on a slide. But do still plan on doing that when my family isn't getting sick, along with these as well. So I guess kind of similar to last week for a broadly similar reason. It's just rather than me being sick, my wife was sick. So we are continuing to plod along, and hopefully next week we will have a more positive update. Anyway, that's all I've got for this week. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. I've been the Boss Hog, and good luck with everything. Bye for now.